Hi everyone, thanks for waiting. We'll be getting started with the stream in just a few minutes. We'll get everything kicked off at 1 o'clock, so bear with us. Hello everyone and welcome to Sky Betting and Gaming's Virtual Careers Spotlight. I'm sure most of you will already be aware, but for anyone who isn't, we are one of the UK's leading betting and online gambling businesses. We're based out of Yorkshire and we've got offices in Leeds and Sheffield as well as in Solihull. Our teams design, build and maintain products such as Sky Bet, Sky Vegas, Sky Poker, Sky Bingo and free-to-play games like Super 6 and many others. Our Virtual Careers Spotlight series will focus on a different team from across the business each week, and this is your opportunity to hear from our experts. Some initial housekeeping before I introduce today's speakers. We'd like this to be an interactive session, so we encourage you to ask questions. Towards the end of the session, I'll try and read out as many of these as I can. To ask a question, you'll have to be signed into your YouTube account and then simply add your question to the comment section on the right-hand side of the page. This session will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch it back at a later date. Today's spotlight is on our core customer delivery team, and I'm delighted to be joined by Liz Moore and Tom Hoyland. Guys, you're live, broadcasting to the nation. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. We'll kick things off first of all with some introductions. Just get the ball rolling. Liz, do you want to kick us off? Who are you? What do you do?
My name's Liz Moore. I'm head of delivery for core customer in Sheffield, and I work within the core delivery team. I'm responsible for delivery for the tribe, basically. That's my job.
Amazing. And Mr. Hoyland?
So I work with Liz over in the core customer tribe in Sheffield. I'm an agile delivery lead. I look after one of our teams, the platform squad, and I also support our pop-up squads when that happens.
Amazing. So for those who aren't familiar with the we split our business into what we call tribes. Now, these are essentially business divisions that look after a particular product or service. So I think it would be best to kick off with an introduction to the core customer tribe and what you guys actually do. So, Tom, you're a core vet, so why don't you take us away on that one, mate?
So core customer is one of these tribes that we've got in Sky Betting and Gaming. We support the whole business, so we provide the commodity services that you use to access all of our products. So whenever you come to fire up the Sky Bet app or you're using anything like bonus time or Super 6, you usually interact with our services. We provide features like being able to log in. You use our login service. We get people registered. We make sure that they are who they say they are and they're entitled to use our products. We provide all the services like being able to, withdraw your winnings, be able to make deposits, and then be able to access our safer gambling and responsible gambling tools.
Brilliant. Okay. Liz, you joined the business in Q4 last year. What attracted you to Sky Betting and Gaming, and how's it been since you joined?
I've just done my 5-month point, and I think I did like 12 or 13 weeks from the office as normal, and this is week 9 from home. So I've nearly done half and half of each now. But I was aware of so many people that I'd worked with previously who were at Sky Betting and Gaming, or so many people that I've interacted with through the Sheffield tech community, really incredible people, really high caliber people that I've always admired and respected. And SBG's always felt to me like it attracts those kind of people. So from day one, I kind of felt like SBG was somewhere that would have like-minded people that were really, really driven, cared about the same sort of stuff that I did. So I thought, if they're there, then that's probably where I need to be as well.
Amazing. Okay, and Tom, you've had a bit of a longer journey here. Why don't you tell us what attracted you to SBG and how things have been for you?
So again, it's going to be the same story as Liz. I've heard about SBNG. It's quite big in the Sheffield community, massive in Sheffield, in the Leeds community as well. And the one thing that attracted me was the caliber of the people. I worked with a lot of contractors who had been at Sky Betting and Gaming before. I knew some people that were working there at the time. And the one thing that always came across was the quality of the people that were working there, the culture, the caliber, and the drive and the mindset to do really great work and work at your best and at the top of your game. So I wanted to get involved in that. So I went to a couple of meetups, went to a couple of talks just to see if it all was as it seemed to be. And you know what? It was. So I kind of threw my hat in the ring and got involved, and the rest is history.
Certainly is. So why don't we talk about the core delivery team then, Liz? So if you can talk to us about roles within the team, what everyone's responsible for, and I guess the overall objectives for the core delivery team within the wider business.
Okay. So the team within core customer is made up of 2 roles. There's the agile delivery lead, and there's a program manager role as well. And the way that SBG or core customer in particular split those two roles out are an ADL is focused almost entirely on a tribe, and a program manager sits across multiple, focused entirely on a squad, and a program manager sits across multiple tribes. So we've got program managers in our team that work with our bet tribe, our gaming tribe, and also our core customer tribe. Whereas Tom, who's an ADL, Tom is focused entirely on his platform team. He does interact with different tribes, don't you, Tom, when you've got to, but I wouldn't say that's kind of your day-to-day. That's just an as and when.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my focus is on just helping our platform team just be as high performing as possible and unlocking that performance.
And in terms of our objective, for me, the main objective for our team in delivery and what we do is we create that environment where teams can thrive. They've got the opportunity to be their best selves every day. They can innovate, they can learn, they can develop, and we help that, we force that, we facilitate that, we do whatever we need to do to create that environment where we can deliver amazing products at pace, and we've got happy, productive, healthy people.
Awesome. We'll touch on that environment then. So how would you describe the culture within the team, and I guess within the Sheffield office as a whole, since you've joined? Because I know it's had a bit of an impact on you.
Fun, I think. I joined at the beginning of December, and I think for most organisations, December's a bit more fun than other months. You're ramping up to Christmas. People have got a lot of annual leave, but it got to the point in December where, I was making jokes about like getting benefit fatigue. I walked into work one day and there was a snowboard machine. The next day we were doing chocolate making. The day after there was a choir there. At least once a week we'd have like 200 Mackie D's breakfast just turn up on random mornings just because. It's definitely the most creative and innovative place I've ever worked. There's a real feel that the people there genuinely care about the customers, about the products, about the business, about each other. And Sheffield as a whole is kind of like a big town. It's not got a big city feel, although it is one. And I think that's replicated in SBG, especially in the Sheffield office. There's a real community feel. Everybody mucks in, everybody cares about each other, and there's just a sense of just get it done. How can we help each other? How can we swarm? Where are the problems?
Great. Okay. I guess, Tom, you've seen the culture sort of grow and develop over time. So how would you sort of sum it up?
I think the culture that we've got in Sheffield and the culture that we've got across Sky Betting and Gaming is a really agile one, and it sounds really cliched, but every team is just really focused on what it can do today to deliver a great product, and then what it can do tomorrow to make that product better, and then also improve the way that they actually make the product, the how. So we've got some brilliant teams all across SB&G, but when I look at the makeup of those teams and the foundations, they come down to 5 things. The first one is we've got fantastic product ownership. We've got great product owners who are empowered to make decisions, and they're based in each and every one of our teams. So if we need to make changes, if we need to have a decision or take a decision, it just happens then and there. So we can pivot, we can go from one direction to another. It's really quick. And the teams and the product owners are really empowered, and that really does sing through. The second thing that we've got, I think, is probably the amount of empathy. And you hear the term psychological safety bounded around the internet and on LinkedIn quite a lot these days. But the teams that we've got really do have a foundation of psychological safety. People are not afraid to share their ideas and their concerns with each other. And that really does speak volumes. It enables us to nip problems very, very quickly in the bud. And then if we've got any ideas, if people have got any ideas of how to make the products better or how we deliver things better, then they're not afraid to voice them, even if they're a little embryo of an idea. It's really great. I think the other thing that helps us build our agile culture is probably this constant state of readiness that we're in. So each team has got a really low amount of work in progress. That doesn't mean that we don't get through a huge amount of work, but we're always looking at our blockages, how long it's taking us to get things from concept to reality, and the focus is on getting things out of the door as quickly as possible so we can get new features to the customers, but we can also learn from it and improve the way that we're working. I think the really great thing about each one of our teams is that they've got their own culture, they've got their own identity, and they're not afraid to be themselves. And I know you've touched on this a lot, Tom, in your posts on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I mean, a lot of the teams in SB&G, they're just not afraid to be themselves. They've got a clear identity, they've got their own behaviours, they've got their own values, and that's a really strong glue that holds people and teams together. And what I've seen across the business is loads of different teams, loads of different ways of working, all completely valid, and it helps each team be the best it can be every day.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's one of my favourite things about SBG, that everybody's got a different way of working. That's fine, but we all share the same behaviours, the same values, the same end goal. We all work for the same company. We all want the same thing. But how we get there is normally very different because it's based on that team.
Excellent. Okay, so Tom, in your role, you're on ADL, and ADL isn't necessarily a term that's used in every organisation in the same way that potentially project manager is, or Scrum Master is even a bit more common. Why don't you give us a bit of an idea about the balance that you're striking on a day-to-day basis between being those different things, being a Scrum Master, being a project manager, and all the other plates that you're sort of spinning at once? Why don't you give us a bit of a day in the life of Tom?
So I think one of the great things about the ADL role is it gives you a really big canvas. So you can lean on all the different tools and techniques and all the different behaviors that you have in a Scrum Master role and an Agile coach role, and then sometimes even in a project manager role. And I say project manager with the small p because I think my goal is to enable teams to be the best they can be, not do everything for them, but just help them to build that capability within their own team and move to that high-performing team level. So for me, if you were to look at my day, it'd be, first of all, looking at numbers. So I'm really driven by numbers. I'm interested in the behavior of teams, but I'm also interested in the metrics that sit behind that. So the first thing for me in the morning is to look at the stats from the day before. Have we got any blockages? Are things taking too long to get through our boards? Can we see any problems starting to occur? But then the next thing is having a conversation with people. So I'll usually do the rounds. I'll go and talk to the different people in the team, see how they're feeling, get the temperature of the team before we kick off the day, and put those two parts of the puzzle together, and then use that to shape how we're going to be approaching the day, what we need to focus on, and what we need to kind of like unblock for the team. After that, it's going to be straight into a stand-up for me. So a stand-up with one of the teams that I look after. We'll be looking at what work's taking place, what's on the cusp of delivery, of getting out the door to our customers, what we can do, like Liz has said, what we can do to swarm on things, to help get things out to our customers, and then read any signals that we get in from the team. Are they worried about things? Do they see any blockages? Do they see a lot of dependencies? And that's where I kind of drift a bit into that project manager role. So what I'll be doing is looking at the dependencies that exist with our squad, talking to program managers, talking to other squads and other tribes to try and mitigate and to minimize those so that team can move forward as quickly as possible. After that, it's usually going to be a case of coaching the team. So sitting down with individuals, understanding how they're feeling and working with them to identify what they can do to bring to the surface and how they can improve themselves, how they can improve the way that the squad is working and have better conversations. Maybe around lunchtime, we usually look at the product roadmap. I'll be working with our product owner, boiling down the things that we're wanting to do, all the things that we need to do, and setting out a runway for the team, and then consulting the team on what we think we can achieve given how fast we've gone before in the past. And then towards the end of the day, it's going to be sitting down with Liz and the other ADLs and the other program managers as part of our big scrum of scrums, just to say what's working in each one of the squads, what have we learned from that day, are there any blockages, is there anything common or shared between the teams, is there something else going on, and what can we do to make the whole tribe go faster, because it's not about one team being faster than another, it's always about what we can do collectively to go quicker and get products into the hands of our customers all faster.
Excellent. And what makes, in your words, what makes a really great ADL?
So I think being a great ADL is a bit of a misnomer, because a great ADL is relative to the team that they're working with. You can have a fantastic ADL that works with one team, but then when you put them with another team, they're just not compatible. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing in Core Customer with Liz is making sure we've got that compatibility. We've got the right Scrum Master, the right ADL to match where that team is on their Agile journey. I think for me, a really good ADL has got those broad shoulders. They've got that deep experience and expertise in a number of key areas, and they're not afraid to bring that to the table when they're working with different squads and tailor their approach. I suppose if you were to look at the skills that a really good ADL has and is able to use, they probably come down to being able to be a good facilitator, bring all the right voices to the surface. We work with not just engineers, we've got product owners, we've got business analysts, testers, we've got UX people. A really good ADL facilitates those conversations and brings them to the surface and makes sure that everybody's voice is heard. Not everybody's going to be wanting to come across and speak up, because you've got a lot of different neurodiversities. So a good ADL is able to balance those and make sure every voice is heard. Some ADLs, they like the numbers, they like the metrics. So they'll spend a lot of time with the heads in the numbers, looking at cycle time, lead time, velocity, all of those buzzwords, but using that information to inform how the team can work, where the team can improve itself, and feeding that information back to them. Some ADLs are all about the culture. They're all about pumping up the team, pushing them forward, dragging them forward, and doing whatever it takes to motivate them, make them feel great about themselves, and to build that culture. And then some ADLs are all about the psychology of the team and understanding what makes people tick and how we can get the best from a team and bring all those different roles together. So I suppose in summary, a good ADL is somebody that knows what skill to use based on where that team is at that point in time, but they're always constantly updating that skill set. They're not afraid of continuous development, and they're not afraid to stick their hand up and say, actually, this is something that I need a bit of help on and I need mentoring myself.
Sounds like a good ADL is a man or a woman of the people then, in short.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a great ADL or coach or scrum master, whatever you want to call them, they're definitely a servant leader. I mean, my job is really just to serve the team and help that team be the best it can be.
Awesome. Okay, so Liz, you joined us as a head of delivery in Q4 last year, as I mentioned. What does it mean to be a leader within delivery here, and what challenges have you found since entering your role?
I think everybody that sits with a delivery hat on is a leader, and I know that sounds incredibly cliche, but agile delivery leads. I think the most important job for an ADL is the lead element of their role. And as Tom mentioned, they're coaches, they're mentors, they've got to be everything, and they've got to decide what they need to be as the circumstances dictate, and they've got to make that decision. I think within SBG there are so many incredible people, and there are so many other people that would benefit from learning more about delivery. Engineers, for example. I've been absolutely floored by how many people outside of delivery have approached me in the last 5 months and said, I want to learn a little bit more. I want to get better at planning my day to day, or I want to get better at estimating, things like that. You maybe don't work with me day to day, but can you help me? We're such an open organisation in terms of culture, and saying, you do this, how do I do it? And if I'm already doing it, how can I do it better?
Okay. And what makes a really great team, in your opinion? Is it pulling all of those things together, or is there more? Yeah.
So for my team in particular, we're such a diverse melting pot. Like, I've got people that are ADLs from backgrounds from in engineering. I've got people that are more typical program project managers previously. I come myself from a very heavy Scrum background, and I think when you bring us all together, there's so much that we can all learn from each other. And again, I know this sounds incredibly cheesy, but I'm inspired by my team so much. I learn so much from them. They've all got so much experience, and it's so diverse as well. The reason I'm doing this today is because of Tom, because I was aware of Tom before I joined SBG, because Tom does this day in, day out across the country off his own back, not on behalf of SBG necessarily. He goes and he talks about agile, he talks about his passion, and that's always inspired me, even before we worked together. And when Tom volunteered for this, I thought, you know what, if Tom can do it, then I can do it. And the more I do it, one day I'm going to be as good as Tom is at it.
Don't say that.
But that's, for me, that's the most valuable thing, and the thing I'm most grateful for within my team, is that we all learn from each other. None of us think, including me, none of us think we've nailed it. None of us think there's nothing else to learn. We're all able to be inspired by each other. And I'm so humbled and grateful for that.
Awesome. Okay, we'll dig a bit deeper into the sort of structure of our delivery teams then. So Tom, obviously every organisation structures delivery slightly differently. How do we position our squads to ensure the most efficiency and the optimum performance?
So our squads tend to be maybe around 12 at the most in terms of numbers, and the reason why we do that is because we want to be able to move forward really quickly. We don't want to have large bloated teams. We want to have small teams that understand the specific area. So in core customer, we've got teams that are dedicated to our onboarding journeys, so getting customers registered, making sure they are who they say they are through verification. And those teams really get to grips with that process, that service that we offer to customers, and they really focus on finding a way to improve that. So our teams are structured around what we call domains and services. And that helps us to move really fast. It also enables us to be really independent. So if we need to upgrade something, if we want to improve that experience, we can just allow that team to get going and they can just crack on. I think one of the things that works really well for us in terms of what makes great teams in SB&G, again, it goes back to being in what we call that constant state of readiness. It's this mindset of what can we do to reduce the amount of work that's going on, not to do less work, but to make the work that whatever we do really, really valuable. It has an impact, it has a punch, and customers really like using our products. And the thing that works really well in SB&G is this agile mindset. Everybody's on a journey, everybody's trying to improve where they are on that journey. And we've got some teams that will think they're really mature, some teams that will think actually we're just at the start of our agile journey. But overall, the baseline for SB&G in terms of agile discipline and capability is really high. It's really up there. I think the things that I've seen teams in people operations who've started to really embrace agile ways of working, Scrum and Kanban, making all of their work visual. So all of our teams, everything around the tech, even that has become agile, and it's really inspiring to see.
Great. Okay. I guess agile is something that you always, I always seem to hear ever since I joined SBG is ingrained into the culture that we've got here, and it sort of bleeds through into everything we do. And it's true, from from development teams to products, even to the way that we work in the recruitment team, it rings true. So how do you instill that mindset, and how do you sort of embed that across an organization as big as ours?
I think it goes back to what Liz has said. I think it's allowing each team to be themselves, and that means experimenting with lots of different ways of working. We've got some teams that are using Scrum that are pure die-hard Scrum teams that wouldn't move to anything else, and that works really well for them because that suits the type of work that they're working on. It also suits the type of the thought space. Some are heavy user research, some are heavy UX focused teams, whereas others have got a much faster throughput in terms of work, and those teams, they like to use things like Kanban. And I think the thing that enables us to build this agile capability is respecting that actually there's lots of different flavors of agile in that agile umbrella, and it's allowing all of those teams to find the method that works best for them, but then also being respectful of the other teams that are around them that help them to deliver the products to our customers. So no team can move, can move fast beyond all the other teams. We've ultimately got to find a way to work together, and that's where we have these conversations. And one of the great things about SB&G is the conversations and the quality of the conversation that we have. It's always coming from a good place. The question is always, what can we do better today? What can we do better tomorrow? And how do we make better products? Everybody's really enthused. Everybody cares about making a better product, but also building a better team. And the thing that I'm really proud of, and the thing that always speaks to me is it's the quality of those interactions that you see within the teams. You see people come to work and really enjoy working with each other. They're insanely proud when they ship that product or they switch that feature on for the first time. And it's an amazing thing to see. It's a great achievement, and it leaves everybody motivated for the next round when we release the next product.
Excellent. Okay. So Liz, Tom touched on conversations then and sort of collaboration. How important is collaboration amongst the teams, both on a local level, but also in a central capacity across the wider business between the different tribes? How important is that to your role and what your team do?
It's crucial. The way SBG is set up, core, if you imagine a Venn diagram, core customer would be right in the middle of it. So we don't work on many pieces of work that are isolated or siloed. We work in collaboration almost on pretty much the majority of work that we do with other teams across the business or other tribes. So for for us, communication, collaboration, I think it's obviously incredibly important for every business, but I think for us as a company and a tribe, it's more important than ever. We try to make sure that we're engaging as early as possible, even if it's a case of, I might need to talk to you in 6 months, so I'm going to pop up now and say hello to you. We try and do that. And as I touched on earlier, we're all working towards the same goal. So whether you're doing a piece of work in core customer or in bet or gaming, etc., ultimately the goal is the same. So we have to make sure at every opportunity that we're engaging with people as we need to, that we're in touch. We had a conversation this morning where we're already thinking about our second half of the year and what other teams do we need to engage? Do we need to start speaking now to teams like security, to infrastructure? What else do we need? Even if we may not need them, let's have that conversation now. And if it turns out that we get them booked in, for example, we'll then go back around it in a couple of months and say, no, we don't need you anymore. But how can we engage earlier and earlier and earlier? How can we give teams as much visibility across the business of our requirements? How can we give people visibility? And how can we get visibility of their requirements? And how can we make sure that we're giving people opportunities to capacity plan properly so that every tribe across the business can achieve their roadmap, so that, you know, we're not coming in at the 11th hour.
Great. Okay. One thing that I'm always asked when I'm recruiting for roles within delivery at Sky Betting and Gaming is how mature are we on our agile journey, and are we sort of really bound by that methodology, or do we employ a sort of amalgamation of lots of different methodologies and techniques? So Tom, perhaps you can answer that one, given that you've got so much experience along the years.
So I don't think we are wedded to one method or one approach. I think I've said before, some teams will use Scrum, some teams will be doing nothing but Kanban because it suits their type of work, and it also suits how our customers want to receive our product updates. Do they want things dripping out little by little, or do we want to launch a big product all in one go? So in terms of our agile maturity, we're not wedded to one particular method. We are very flexible, and we're constantly reflecting on what's working well and what's not. So the platform team that I work in, we are a die-hard Kanban team. It works for us really, really well. But that's not to say that we don't use any tools and techniques from Scrum. We'll still be having reviews every 2 weeks to see how we've been performing. We'll constantly have retrospectives to make sure that we are improving the way that we're working and we're learning lessons. But that's not to say that we can't learn from things from, extreme programming. We've got a lot of great practices going off across SB&G, especially in core customer. We do a lot of paired working, and as Liz has said, we do a lot of swarming on problems as well. And that is a really great practice. It helps us build really resilient teams, so people can keep moving forward no matter whether people go off work or go on holiday. We can keep delivering because continuous delivery is something that's in our blood. But we're not wedded to one particular method. We're constantly experimenting, and as part of the guilds that we've got, so we've got cross-tribe guilds where we share ideas between the different agile communities that exist. We're constantly floating ideas of, this worked well in my tribe, it could work well in your tribe, or do you have any other ways to fix this problem? So we're constantly talking, and it's always about finding a way to improve. We're not fixed with one particular method. We're not restrictive. The focus is always on doing the right thing for the customer and building the right product, but most importantly, building it in the right way. And that starts with the team, and ultimately, it's the teams that decide how they work. But I don't know, what do you think, Liz?
I completely agree. We're just sat here nodding. Yeah, I completely agree. You're right.
Awesome. Okay. I guess it's a question for both of you, but there's no one route towards becoming an agile or a Scrum Master. You can kind of start anywhere really. So how technical or indeed non-technical are the other agiles and yourself, Tom, within the team? Is there a sort of typical background that we tend to look for, or are there ADLs that have come through a pure sort of delivery route or a project route? Maybe you could shed a bit of light on that.
Do you want to take that one, Liz?
Yeah, can do. Not technical at all, or equally very technical. It depends on the person. For me in particular, it's all about who are you, what drives you, why do you care about people, why do you care about the products. How do you interact with people? How do you treat people? If you're technical, fine. If you're not, fine. We'll make sure through the onboarding process that anything you need to know that you don't know, we'll teach you and we'll support you as you learn it. For me, it's all about the things that you kind of can't teach. It's about those human elements of how you treat another person and how you approach a team and how you respond to maybe some bad news, how you coach the team in those situations. And they're the kind of stuff that I think are very hard to change in people if they've not got that from the get-go. Anything else, whether people need to be technical, how we deliver something, what documents we use, things like that, we can teach that.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll touch quickly on the recruitment process here then, and specifically within Core. So, Liz, you're probably a good person to talk about this because you've not only led a number of recruitment processes over the last 6 months, but you've been through one yourself. So, how does that typically look for us? What sort of things do we look for in people, and how do we typically assess candidates who we've got coming through the door?
We try to give them real world scenarios that they would have at SBG, and we kind of come at it from there's no right or wrong answer. This is a scenario. How would you deal with it? And it's not a case of how do you think we want you to answer, or how, do you know what I mean? Like we really try and get under the skin of how would you, the person, deal with this problem? How would you approach it? What would you learn from it? How would you deal with the team after the event? Obviously, we're looking at what experience they've got in terms of where they've worked previously. Have they been in a similar environment? If they haven't, that's fine. How does their experience map to what we've got? Could they bring something new, some new ideas to SBG with them? The thing that I really liked personally about me going through the process was how informal it all was. I got an email saying, here's your interview day. There's no need to dress fancy and wear a suit. Just, we're interested in who you are as a person. And if you want to come to the interview in a t-shirt and jeans, we're not there to make an assessment on how you dress or how you look. We're there to assess you in terms of what you've done before, what we can give to you, what you can give to us. And I think that's something that we've all tried to do with candidates. Also, just call them candidates, but we try and make a conscious effort to remember that behind every CV, there's a person that's waiting, very impatiently for news. We try and make sure that we don't leave people waiting for decisions over evenings. Things like that. When they come into the Sheffield office, we try and give them a little tour, so they can familiarise themselves with where they'd be working, because this is as much is this the right company and the right fit for them as it is. Well, I've still not been down the slide, so I don't want to talk about the slide. But yeah, it's never happened, and I can't imagine why it would. But somebody could walk in one day and take a look around and go, no, it's not for me. I don't like it. So, it's as much for them to test. Do they want to work with me? Do they want to work with Tom? Do they want to work in this environment? Do they want the pressure of being asked if you've been down the slide every day in electric works, like I have to do? And also, as well, one thing we do at the end of a face-to-face interview, we give the person 10 minutes with a team. If we have a good idea of what team that person would go into, we'll pop them with that team. If not, we'll just pick a team at random and we'll say, this is a squad. That's your lead engineer, that's your product manager. Spend 10 minutes, ask them any questions. We'll step away so we don't kind of monitor that. Just get to know each other a little bit. Again, see if you think this is the right fit for you. Do you think you'd be happy here? Do you think you'd be able to learn things? Do you think you'd be able to add value? Do you think you'd all get on?
Great. And Tom, was that reflective of your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, when I was interviewed at SB&G, it was really informal. The best part of my interview was being interviewed by the squad, and obviously I went through the usual process of talking to our heads of tech and our heads of delivery. But the best part of the interview was going and sitting with the squad, because you get a real feel for how that squad operates. And it's as much about, as Liz has already said, it's about making sure that you're compatible with the team and the team's compatible with you. And sitting with the squad, you start to understand the atmosphere, you understand the ways of working. As an agile delivery lead, as an agile coach, I can ask the questions that I want to. I can try to get under the skin of how that team operates, just to understand what their world's like, what challenges have they got, and if I was to accept the position, what am I walking in the door to? Is everything going to be in a good situation, or have we got a lot of team recovery to do? And I think that's what really struck me in the interview. The interview was with the team, and that left a really good taste in my mouth. And it was one of the reasons why I accepted the job. And unlike Liz, I've been down the slide a couple of times.
Sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
Okay, so I guess the last point before we move on into some questions, what advice would you guys have for anyone who's potentially interested in moving into an ADL or Scrum Master or delivery focused role, or even a program manager, and B, anyone who's interested in applying for one of those roles at Sky Betting and Gaming in particular?
I think from my perspective, if I was to go back in time and give myself advice, it would be do as much as you can, get working with as many teams as you can in lots of different environments. Talk to different teams, talk to different companies. I'm really fortunate because I've got a really good network and I can go and see how other businesses and other delivery teams operate. And it gives you a real understanding of where you are in terms of your own skills, where you need to improve. And then it also gives you an insight into how different companies operate. And you can then add that to your toolbox, and then you can take that to different teams and you can help those teams. You know, going back to the tech communities that we've got in Sheffield and in Leeds, I mean, the number of meetups that we've got around Agile in Sheffield, DevOps in Leeds and Sheffield, there's just so many. So I would say get to those events, start talking to those communities, see how different organizations and companies deliver. Software engineers, they deliver in one way. You can break work down in a specific way in that environment, but there's lots of different other ways to deliver work. You've got people that do a lot of user research, a lot of user experience work, and business analysis. That works in a totally different thought space. It's not the same as software engineering. So if you want to kind of like upskill yourself and get ready for an ADL role or Scrum Master or Agile coach role or Program Manager, I would say just get as much exposure as possible to all these different ways of working, because a really good ADL, or what I think is a good ADL in Sky Betting and Gaming, is somebody that is able to respect all of those different professions and to be able to respect that people work in a different way, but find a way to gel and bring that together. What do you think, Liz?
I agree. I think my advice for candidates going through the process would be just quite simply be yourself from start to finish. Be yourself. We will hire you for you.
Yeah, that's great, and potentially someone who has is in a different role at the moment, or is quite early in their career and looking to move forward into agile or delivery. What advice would you have for someone in that position?
I think very similar to what Tom said. Find opportunities. You know, and if that's not possible within your organization or your role, there's so much from a technical perspective, a technical community perspective that's already out there. You know, you don't have to be working within delivery to attend the agile meetups or the product tank meetups or anything like that. You know, they're fairly regular. You know, there's so much online that you can read about. And now that the whole world seems to be working from home within tech, the meetups aren't physical obviously anymore. You know, you can do things like this. You can join these sessions. I think just involve yourself and submerge yourself into the way of working, the culture as much as you can. And I think it's a really good first step, because it might be you do that, you think actually it's not what I thought it was, and I don't know if it's for me, or I don't know if I'm as suited to this as I thought. So it's a really good way to kind of try it before you buy it.
Awesome. Okay, great. So we'll crack on with some questions now. I'll start with one that was asked before the session began yesterday afternoon, and that was for you, Liz, and it was, how have you had to change or adapt your management or leadership style having come into Sky Betting and Gaming, perhaps from how you had it in your previous role? Is there anything that you've had to change?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I maybe do a little bit less of very close management, and that's because of the maturity of the team. But like I've said a few times, I'm a big believer in, you know, our free to be me value. And it was a deal breaker for me. You know, wherever I work, I need to feel like I'm free to be myself. So I tend to operate and manage here as I have done previously. I can't think of any major changes that I've had to make, to be honest. The biggest change for me was going from managing a lot more disciplines to just a single discipline. So previously I'd look after QA, I used to look after engineering, architecture, and the Scrum Master as well. Whereas here I'm just focusing in on delivery. So I think that's probably been the biggest change in terms of, instead of looking quite wide, I'm able to really consolidate.
Great. Okay. I'm laughing because I've just scrolled through the comments and one just says hashtag Tom the legend. I'm assuming that's you, Tom, not me, Tom. Next question. This Tom's probably one's for you, actually. How does an ADL differ from a Scrum Master, and how do they support the product owner of a given team?
So I think if you were to look at just a pure Scrum Master, a Scrum Master is, as the title suggests, it's working in a Scrum environment, it's supporting a team, it's removing impediments, it's coaching that team, mentoring them, and then it's about training them in the doctrine that is Scrum. But then also supporting the product owner. In an agile delivery lead role, the canvas, as I've said before, is really quite wide. So I can do risk management, I can help our product owners put their roadmaps together. I do a lot of deep work around capacity planning, looking at the throughputs and the metrics of each one of our teams. So it involves a lot of those skills as well. But then I might be doing dependency management, as Liz has said. I might be talking to other tribes. I might be helping them with how they're delivering things. Ultimately, we are all one big family, and I think the role of ADL is much wider than the role of Scrum Master, because you're practicing lots of different methods, lots of different approaches and frameworks. You're not restricted. You're doing a little bit of project management with a small p. You're coaching that team. You're being that servant leader for the team. But then one of the things that works really well in SB&G is that you can step outside of your squad. So I work quite a lot with the other ADLs and business analysts in our Agile community, and we run an Agile boot camp across Sky Betting and Gaming. So, and it would be wrong of me not to give a shout out to Darren, who's expecting his first one. So good luck, buddy. And then Callum, Tom, and the other folks have been doing a great job. The thing about being an ADL is you've got such a big canvas to work with. You can coach an individual team, you can coach across the organization, you can mentor, you can train. It's a very open role, and I think that's, Liz has touched on it before. It's about bringing your best self to work and doing what's needed to help and to coach the team, just mucking in, rolling up your sleeves and helping teams succeed.
Awesome. Okay. So next question, how do you guys ensure teams are able to take a more holistic view of the work that they're doing?
I think I can take this one, but I'd be interested to get Liz's view, because I know you work really closely with our product managers and our lead product manager. So one of the things that we really focus on in our teams is focus on the outcome over the output. So the team that I work in, we are a platform team. We build the underlying infrastructure that supports our login in services, verification, payments, and safer gambling. And one of the things that we always focus on is what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve, not what do we need to build, not what is the next widget or the next feature. The question is, what needle or what dial do we want to move to delight the customer, to speed up the service that we've got, to increase the amount of headroom. It's always about the outcome. And what we try to do is we try to give that outcome to the team, not constrain them, because they're incredibly talented people. They've got such a huge caliber and kind of like a skill set at their disposal. It's always about giving them the outcome and then allowing them to find the most effective way to achieve that outcome and give them the space to learn along the way on that journey. So it's about essentially setting these creative people that we've got, and we've got so many of them, just set them free and let them do what's needed to deliver a great result. I mean, what do you think, Liz?
I agree. We went through our team values a couple of months ago, and one of the things that came out of there was it's kind of our job to make sure that we're asking why, the team are asking why. Everybody feels empowered to do that, and we just keep asking why until we go, we get what you're trying to do, we get why you're trying to do it. And as Tom says, we're the experts, we're going to go away. It's our decision to define how we do it, but we now know what you want, we know why you want it, so we can do the rest.
Brilliant. Okay. Another question. So we've described the culture at SBG as an agile culture quite a few times throughout this session. What specifically makes a culture agile in your view and at SBG? I guess to get to the root of that question, we have to just kind of talk about what agile actually means to us. And Tom, you gave me a pretty solid overview of this during the last session that I did with you. So why don't you take this one away, mate?
So I think agile is one of those container words. It means everything to everybody, but for me, it's about reducing the lead time to that business impact. It's about finding a way to learn and to deliver a product and to do it faster. Take an outcome, find a way to break it down into smaller chunks, and then get that out to the customer as soon as possible, so we can validate whether that idea is a good one, we can work out how quickly we're moving, and we can use that information to change what we build, but then also change how we build it. But I think the key thing, and I think the thing that's really good about Sky Betting and Gaming is, and it comes down to the sustainability and the safety that those teams work within. Each team works in a really sustainable way. It doesn't tire itself out. It doesn't move towards what you sometimes see in some organisations where teams go really hard at it and then they collapse in a corner and they need to recharge. The thing that we really focus on is on building sustainable teams in SB&G, and that's one of the key things that's wedded to our culture. It's about learning, but it's about focusing on the team, because the team's the vehicle for delivery. You know, healthy teams equals healthy products, and that's it for me, really.
Great. Okay. There's been a few mentions of everyone moving towards the same goal. How do you ensure these goals are communicated and shared effectively over an organisation the size of yours? Probably a good one for you, Liz.
Yep. So we, as an organisation, go into some pretty large planning cycles. We've just come out of one now where, as a business, we've looked at what we're going to achieve, what we're going to deliver for the second half of the year. So we make sure at that stage that everybody's aligned across the business. We make sure everybody has capacity to do what we'd like to do. If they don't, then they're conversations that we have. And then once that's agreed at a really high level, we then drill that down further. So each team will take away their work. Product generally do a really good, an awesome job of leading on that, and they generally manage that for the business. They'll take that to their product managers. They'll then roll that out to their lead engineers, their teams, their ADLs, their program managers, and it'll just become more granular until it features in every squad's individual roadmap.
Okay, and then there was a question near the top that was interested to know how the current climate has changed two things: ways of working and priorities as a team. That's probably a good question to lead on from what you just mentioned, because I guess at the moment communication is everything. So how have you managed to make that transition with your communication from in the office to everyone working remotely?
For me, selfishly, it's probably better. I mean, I used to spend a day a week in Leeds before all of this. Obviously, I don't have to do that anymore. The people that I need are at the other end of a phone or a video call. It's leveled everybody. There's no Leeds or Sheffield anymore. And I've spoken to people that work elsewhere and said they're experiencing the same thing. There's no Sheffield, there's no London anymore. We're just all people, all working for the same company that are all based at home. So, you know, weirdly, and I'd be interested to hear Tom's thoughts, because I'm not as close to an individual squad as Tom is. But for me personally, communication is easier and better for me.
I think from a squad perspective, not a lot has actually changed. So when we went to remote working, a lot of the practices and the processes that we put in place in all of our squads, they all just kind of rolled over to remote working. Nothing changed. The only difference was that you were working from home or working from a location that's further away from your engineers and your buddies. The only real difference is we've had to turn up the volume on some communication. So it used to be that we'd have a stand-up in the morning. Now we have a stand-up in the morning, but then we have a catch-up at 2 o'clock every day. And that's not to track where work is because we don't trust people. These are really clever people, the people that we trust implicitly. It's more a case of, how are you doing? What did you have for lunch? How are you feeling? How's the day been going? And more importantly, what did you learn? Those are the types of conversations that we've been having more and more. And I think the remote working, although you're looking down a webcam onto a Zoom call or onto a Teams call more and more, you are actually having more communication with people. You're having more focused time with with individuals and groups. And the things that we do, product backlog refinement, planning our roadmaps, retrospectives, to be fair, we've moved seamlessly from the real world into the virtual world. And some people that weren't as engaged before, they weren't as happy and comfortable just getting up and grabbing hold of the whiteboard marker and starting to draw something. When they're using the tools that we've got remotely, some are engaging far more than they did before. So I think it speaks volumes to the culture that we've got, that we can embrace that.
Yeah.
It also speaks a lot about how comfortable people feel being themselves again. You know, it sounds very cliched, but everybody's happy to be themselves, and when people are not feeling up to it, you can tell, you can detect that in the tone of voice they're coming across in a stand-up, or if they're just slacking you and just saying, I'm all right, I'm fine. Well, sometimes people aren't always fine. And then the great things about our teams is that somebody will detect that and they'll say, I'll go and have a natter with them and just make sure they're okay. Yeah.
And I think because we are such an agile organisation, we're able to be really responsive and really dynamic. So before we officially moved to work from home, we kind of all knew this was going to happen, and it was just a when and not an if. So the 2 weeks before the official move to work from home, we were all making sure that we could all access the VPN. What did we need to take home with us that evening? Did everybody have a comfy chair? Was everybody going to get backache for a few weeks if we were at home? So we have enough autonomy to take that on ourselves and ask those questions, so that when the decision came, and I think Tom, you and I were already at home on the Monday, but I think the decision came on the Monday when people were in the office to not return on the Tuesday. It was kind of like, okay, we're ready. We know what we need to do. Everything's at home that we need. We've already done all the checks. So the impact was minimal, like unbelievably minimal. We're checking metrics daily. Team health is strong. People, communication in terms of how people feel they're communicating is up. How people feel they're being rewarded and recognised is up. Obviously, as an LT, we've really turned up the dial on looking after our people and creating opportunities to see those little indicators that you normally only get when you're in the office. But yeah, I don't want to jinx it, but it's people are happy, people are productive, and that's win-win for us.
Yeah, I think I'd also like to echo that on a sort of company-wide scale. I think we have an engagement and inclusion team that do an amazing job in terms of making sure everyone's where they need to be, everyone's got everything they need, and everyone's sort of both in the physical and the headspace to be able to sort of crack on and do their jobs and do it well. So it's a testament to the organisation as a whole, I guess, as well as the tribe in particular. Next question. So someone, Marcus Major says, great that you're not wedded to an agile model or particular delivery method. I guess you do have a framework though. So what's the what frameworks do we have, if any, and what are the largest agile change or improvements that we've made recently?
Do you want to take that one, Tom? Do we have a framework?
Well, I think in core, what we did maybe about 3 or 4 months ago was we just took a step back and we looked at how work moved through each one of the teams, and each team's got its own different status to define where an idea is on its journey from concept to delivery. And I think the only framework that we agreed on was just some naming conventions. We all agreed that everything, when it came in for the first time, we just called an idea. Then it went into a discovery phase that we care about discovery, we care about customer experience and user research. We knew that we needed to double down on that, so we called one of our phases discovery. Then we've got planning, pre-delivery, so we're on the cusp of getting something into the teams, and then we've got completed. That's the only framework that we've really been aggressively practicing. You usually see things like retrospectives, reviews, stand-ups across the business, but really it's about just finding what works for you in the team that you've got and just changing what you bring into the table. Sometimes I'll be spending a lot of time doing loads of reviews and loads of retrospectives if that team is at the state where we need to focus on what we're getting through and understanding our throughput. But then sometimes it's going to be hands off with the team. It's just going to be extracting metrics, understanding where we are, and then presenting these back to the team and saying, this is what your throughput's been. Do you understand why this is the case? Can you remember any events that took place? And just giving the team some freedom to interpret that and then say, this is what we're going to do to correct this. This is what we're going to do to amplify this really good result.
Great. Okay. And another question, how much as a company do we value agile qualifications? So CSM, IPC, ACC, etc. Are these vital? Are these something we look for? Are they nice to have?
I obviously can't speak on behalf of the company. Maybe Tom B, you can say from a recruitment perspective after kind of how you feel about them. I'm more interested in experience, what people have learned kind of on the ground. I think I'm old. I've got a range of certifications. I think the only one that I map back to on a probably weekly basis was my Scrum certification. And I've got big ones. I've got MSP, I've got Prince, but my Scrum certification, I think I studied for 2 days, took a small exam. But that's the only one that I think has really bore fruit on a day-to-day basis. I'm always more interested in who people are, where they've worked before, what they've tried, what they want out of life, what their career goals are personally, than another person that maybe doesn't have as much experience, doesn't have the same drivers, or isn't able to innovate in the same way, but has a range of certifications.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think from my perspective as a recruiter, I think recruitment's changing and evolving, and we're moving away from what's just written down on a CV or qualifications on a page. I think we're gearing up far more to be able to discuss and explore people's personalities as individuals, the experience they've got and what they bring to the table, rather than just sort of how they've constructed an overview of their experience, because I think it's becoming more and more obsolete, especially in technology. I think we're really moving away from sort of more old school recruitment methods. So I think the general consensus across the business is that we just want to get you in front of people. We want to get you in front of people. We want to find out who you are, what makes you tick, what you're bringing to the organization, whether it's something we've got already, whether it's something that's going to contrast and complement our existing skills. And again, it's always on a team by team basis. And you guys have mentioned it a couple of times throughout this session, but I think the value that we've got free to be me, that's so important when it comes to recruitment. And we want to be able to see that. We want to be able to understand who you are, your background, and who you are as an individual, not just as a Scrum Master or an ADL. And to do that, we've got to get you in front of us. So I'd say that holds a lot more weight than qualifications necessarily. We have one more question that we'll go into. How do you do capacity planning, and how is that used across the business?
Do you want me to talk about how we do capacity planning at a cross-tribe level, and then you can talk about the team, Tom?
Yeah, can do. Go for it, Liz.
So capacity at what we call cross-tribe, and that's anything that sits across one or more tribes. We look at the piece of work at a very high level, as a very large whole, and we tend to give it a t-shirt size at that point. And we have a scale of, I think, small, for example, is anything that's under a month, and it goes right up to an extra large, which is 12 months or over. We look at that, and then we have conversations with the heads of delivery, and maybe some of the delivery team, and we say, could you fit this in? We'll give you a large amount of time, so we'll give you 6 or 12 months, for example, and we think it's going to be 3 months worth of work. Could you fit that in theory? If that's a yes, that's fine. If it's a no, we'll continue to work on that, again at an incredibly high level. Once the planning cycle's signed off, that'll then go to an ADL such as Tom. He'll look at that and say, right, when we had very limited information, we said it would take 3 months. We've now got time within the team to scope it out properly, refine it. And that may be 6 months worth of work, or it may be a month at that point. And that's the point that it'll come over to you, Tom, and your team, and is that right? You'll scope it out, you'll build the requirements, you'll size it in terms of story points rather than t-shirt size, and then it'll go to your team roadmap. Yeah,
that's exactly it. So once we get something from Liz or from our product managers, our lead product managers, what we'll do is we'll look back at how much work we've got through historically. So one of the things that we really benefit from in SB&G is a lot of data. We've got so much data and metrics about how our squads perform under different conditions. And then we also benefit from really stable squads, so squads that stay together for a long period of time. So what we'll do is we'll look at how much work we've got through historically, and I won't dive into the detail too much, but we'll look at all the work that's gone through the team based on the size of that team. We'll look at the amount of work that's been planned, so the things that come from Liz, that come from across the whole business, the things that we commit to, and then we'll look at the unplanned things like incident management, work that we do on an ad hoc or business as usual basis from other teams, and we'll take that information and we'll work out how much wriggle room we've got. We'll be able to forecast forward and say, okay, given what we've seen historically, we think we will be occupying 20 to 30% of our team's overall capacity with unplanned work. That gives us maybe about 70 or 80% capacity for plannable work. And then using that as a basis, we'll then look at the work that's come to us from Liz. We'll look at things that have passed through our boards and through our teams historically and say, if this was an extra large before, what does that map to in terms of story points? We'll look and see whether that fits in our roadmap, and then we'll have our conversation with our product owner to make sure it's the right thing to do at that right point in time. If we're worried about it, we'll be going back to Liz, we'll be going back to the other tribes and the other squads that are dependent on us, and we'll be saying, we're a bit worried about this, can we cut it down? And that's where the conversation comes around, not what do you want to build, but why do you want to build it? So that goes back to the whole concept of this is the outcome we want to achieve. So we'll never say we can't do something, we'll always find a way to succeed and win. And that might mean chopping up the work into smaller bite-sized chunks. It might be doing something completely different from what we originally envisaged doing. But the focus is always about succeeding. And we benefit from a lot of historic data, but we also benefit from squads that understand how each other work. And when somebody says it's an 8, somebody says, that's too big, let's make it a 3.
Cool. Okay. There was one last question, but it was for me, and it was how hard was it to give yourself a haircut? But that's a question that's for an entirely different session altogether. But I wouldn't hold your breath about seeing that session on the Sky Bet careers page.
Actually, it was for you. I've done a home haircut. It might have been a question for me.
I was tagged in it, but I mean, you can answer. Right, that's all we've got time for. We've run over by a couple of minutes, but guys, that was awesome. It was great to speak to you both, and thanks so much for covering some of the really key pillars of SPG Life, as well as in your own roles, and shedding so much light on the team and the tribe. So you did an awesome job. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks for having us.